So I really wanted to do my senior project on something film related, since I've always really loved shooting with my camera and making documentaries and such. But it was something that I never really got the chance to explore throughout high school, so I wanted to take the time during senior project to do that. But the difficult part was choosing what I wanted to make my film about. And one thing that I thought about was that I was really involved in music here, whether it was playing clarinet or singing, and that's also something that I love and want to give back to, and I thought that maybe I could explore more about the community inside the music program at Wellesley and the impact that it has on students that have graduated. Oh wait, what's that? Oh wait, I forgot! I have a performance at 12.
No way.
Yeah, wait, it's at the Hat Shell in Boston. Do you know where that is?
No clue.
Oh really? It's by like the Charles River.
Oh, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that one. Yeah. Oh wait, do you want to come?
Music is. I want to support you, but music isn't really my kind of situation.
No, it's one of my last high school performances. It'll be really fun. We'll be playing awesome music and performing, and yeah.
I guess I'll come to support you, but what's so great about music anyway?
So, well, music is like a necessary part of being a human and education. And you coming to see music keeps performing arts alive. Wait, these people can explain it better than I can.
It creates the whole child. Math and science and reading, and that's all, of course, incredibly important. But to create the whole child, they have to be immersed in the arts, so music as well as the fine arts. There's also the library, there's also fitness and health. So we want to make sure that when a child leaves Wellesley, that they have a full experience of everything that will make them the kind of person that will be able to experience music or art in a really informed way.
I know that the STEM acronym has become very popular in the last few years. There's an alternative to that actually, which is STEAM, that includes the arts in there, and I think even for our engineers, for our scientists, for anybody, even when you're going into those really analytical type of positions, I think that arts and creativity are so important to just building students' intellect, helping them learn how to think and creatively problem solve.
These are the people who are going to keep live orchestral music alive, because they're going to be the ones that are going to go to these concerts, because they're educated and they understand the music.
Whoa, that was so interesting.
Yeah. Wait, didn't you do music when you were younger?
Yeah, I did. I used to play piano for maybe a few years, and then I also did 1 year of viola, but that didn't go.
Viola! I didn't know that.
Do you think the Wellesley High School music program does a good job inspiring kids to continue to play their instruments?
Oh, for sure. Wellesley offers the instrumental and vocal extension program, and I was digging into that a lot for my senior project, and I realized what a great emphasis we place on making great teachers accessible.
First of all, other towns don't have a professional trumpet player, say, teaching the trumpet to students, or a professional oboist teaching the oboe students. When I was in elementary school, anybody who wanted to play the flute got together in a room. There were 10 or 15 of us, and the band teacher would come and teach all of us the flute. Turns out the band teacher was actually a trumpet player. So your experience isn't quite as intense, and you certainly don't learn nearly as much studying in a giant group like that and from somebody who doesn't actually play the instrument.
Well, I think that from what I understand from the history, Dr. Sandy Nicolucci, who was here for 19 years, I believe, in Wellesley. She really kind of developed the IVET program when she saw the need for quality instruction to students, and she wasn't able to provide that during the school day, but she wanted it as part of the school system, and how could she develop that? So I think a lot of the credit goes to her for recruiting new teachers, to developing the program to what it is today, and in the past, directors in my position have kind of continued that process. It's gotten so big to the point where, Mr. Wilson now is our administrative assistant just for that program.
In my administrative role, I think one of my favorite things to be able to do is to help students that are in need, whether it's financial or if they have learning disabilities, help them get into lessons and help them get those services.
We definitely reach out to those families and try to if we know a student comes up to a music teacher and says, oh, I'd love to take trombone, or a parent contacts us, we work behind the scenes, in a confidential way to find a way to get some instruments. We have some school-owned instruments that we'll let them borrow. Sometimes we've bought a few instruments that are part of our just collection that they can use, and then we provide scholarship opportunities for them to take lessons if that's a real need. So we never have denied a student who wants to participate if we know about that. We usually find a way to make that happen.
The name Dr. Nicolucci came up a lot.
Oh yeah, I know.
Dr. Sandra Nicolucci started it when she was the director here, and she was longtime director. Her name still comes up with various things.
Dr. Nicolucci.
Dr. Sandy Nicolucci.
Sandy Nicolucci deserves a lot of credit for that.
So why didn't you ever interview her?
I think she was busy or something.
What you say? That you only meant well.
Well, even alumni remember their teachers having a great influence on them from the IVET program.
My name is Seth Bailin. I graduated Wellesley High School, class of 2005. I'm 32 years old now, and I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, playing saxophone professionally and working as a youth mentor. I was in the 1 o'clock jazz band or 2 o'clock jazz band, I can't remember, maybe both. I was also in some small jazz combos at Wellesley High. I took private lessons for about 10 years, I guess from 3rd grade all the way through senior year of high school with John Clark. A huge influence on my life and my musicianship. Private lessons absolutely helped me grow as a musician. I remember taking lessons in these small little closets in the middle school and the high school for 10 years.
Yeah, it's also really cool since some of our friends got started on their first instruments here.
Really?
Maia Foley went to Fisk, and when she was in kindergarten, her brother had joined the band as a trumpet player, and her parents asked if she could just sit in the hallway and read a book so they wouldn't have to drop off twice. Of course, that's fine. Having Maia in kindergarten class, I realized immediately that she had a really good sense of rhythm. And at the time, I had only one drummer in the band. So I asked her one morning, can you come in, hit this drum on beats 1 and 3. So she counted to 4 and she would hit on 1 and 3. She was awesome. She was just amazing. And she ended up being my best percussionist for 6 years.
I just remember the tour of the instruments at my elementary school, and I don't know why, but I think I gravitated to the sax. It might have been because one of my friends was like, I want to play the saxophone. And I was like, well, okay, I do too. I
remember in elementary school in music class, we would have to sing, and when we had to sing, I was not happy. So instead of actually singing the words, I would go.
No!
Did Wellesley ever have like music classes or programs that got kids into music?
Yeah, we have a lot of programs set up for elementary schoolers.
There was a year, I think those kids are now in high school, so I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was an exceptional band. These kids ate up music like you can't imagine. And we had a new principal here at Fisk, Anthony Colanino, and he brought the growth mindset idea to Fisk. And I decided I wanted to do a growth mindset project with my band. And I chose a piece of music that was really either late middle school or early high school level. And we had an extra band rehearsal each week where all we would do is we would chip away at this piece. And we talked about how you would work on this piece using growth mindset. And the kids came up with strategies, and by the end of the year, the kids were able to play the piece. I soon found out teaching somebody from the beginning is so important. If you're teaching somebody from the beginning and they're taught well, then they're gonna succeed. Oh my God, if I could teach kindergarten all day long, I would. Because they're sponges and they love everything.
Remember middle school, that one time I came into the band room and you guys were just eating ice cream, so I just left?
Yeah, that probably happened. Yeah, middle school was a time. I remember they gave me the option to do band and chorus, so I would switch off going to band and chorus, and that was really nice since I could both sing and play my clarinet and pursue both interests.
I think I remember more of my middle school performances because that was where I was starting to learn how to improvise, take solos, and express myself. I think I learned a lot in middle school from Henry Platt. Huge influence on my life. And when I was in high school, I ended up taking some guitar lessons from him. But 6th, 7th, and 8th grade was a huge time in my musical development.
I always really enjoyed working at the middle school because of the enthusiasm of the kids and the excitement, that sort of sense of discovery, and watching them grow from 6th graders to 8th graders. You know, there's a tremendous amount of growth that happens.
I just kind of like being in a group, especially in the band. It's fun to be able to be in a group with people and be able to produce music. Something that happened this year, actually, and pretty recent, is so we got this piece called, I think, Chronos? I'm not totally sure what it's called. And there was this flute solo right after the opening. And I was talking to my friend because the one flute had tried it one band class, and I told my friend, remind me to try it. And then the next band class, I totally forgot about what I said. And without her telling me anything, she raised her hand and volunteered me for the flute solo. And so I tried it, and we've just been switching off the flute, so it's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad she did that. So whenever we play a song, we might go through it, and then after, he will stop and try to go back and fix a few things. And he does it, he will pick out sections to practice parts. I remember for a flute part, so we have 4 flutes, and so when we played the song but we got up to this one part, we all just kind of stared at it and we're we haven't practiced this. And so then after, he took it slowly with us until we're better at it.
I think that I've given them some, like I said, some really cool experiences. We'll go to the Quincy Market and perform, which has been a long-standing tradition here, to take the students in the 8th grade band to the State House and perform in the State House, and they can go to Faneuil Hall. That's been a fun trip because, again, it's out into a new environment in front of potentially a new audience. I love the Quincy Market trip for the jazz band at the end of the year because that, again, is a real realistic performance experience where they're literally playing in the street of Quincy Market, right? And they just play for anybody that passes by. And we play all of our songs that we've learned throughout the entire year.
Oh yeah, Mr. Platt also told me a lot about the history of how the high school program came to be in our interviews.
Yeah, September of 1988, I was hired to be the middle school band and orchestra conductor and jazz band. At that time, Bob Davis was the high school band, orchestra, and jazz band conductor. And I wasn't told when I was hired that he was going to retire in 2 years. And the idea was kind of that I would take over for him because the high school band had gone down to almost nothing. And the reason for that was that the scheduling, it was so intense that they couldn't get all the kids in 5th period when the band met. So he would have after-school rehearsals and have a concert. And the idea was that we were going to try to bring it back to where we had the whole band and at every rehearsal and try to build it up from there. So for 7 years, I did the high school and middle school bands.
Henry Platt, Mr. Platt, was our wonderful band director who, before me, was doing the middle school and high school programs, kind of like almost doing two jobs, practically really doing two jobs. So when they hired me, there was a commitment from the community, from our new superintendent at the time, to start to expand and grow the program and to fill in areas, I think, where there was glaring need for there to be full-time teachers and things like that. It was by about 2004, the end of the 2004 school year, that we were looking at the program and saying, we've got the numbers, we've got the interest, we've got students with different kinds of goals, who some students are very simply wanting to be part of the band family and keep playing their clarinet with their friends. And there's sort of like that level of, buy-in and that level of, interest in wanting to keep music as part of their lives. And then we had students whose aim were I want to major in music, I want to become a professional musician in my future. And can we offer ensembles that can address all of those needs? And so by the fall of 2005, we broke into the concert band and wind ensemble, and probably right around that time, maybe a year earlier, also we're able to add another jazz band, the 1 o'clock jazz band and 2 o'clock jazz band.
By that time, there were enough kids that you could do two bands, and you could have two viable ensembles. And he made the program very competitive in terms of competitions and stuff like that. And they started doing really well when you made it a wind ensemble. When I started at the high school, I immediately started having auditions for the 2 o'clock jazz band. It wasn't called the 2 o'clock jazz band at first, it was called the stage band. And that was its name for decades, probably. Then in '95, they started this home period, and I started this free jazz ensemble, which was basically just, we were listening to a lot of quote-unquote free jazz by people like Ornette Coleman, and we were trying to create, and people even farther out than him, we were trying to create something new and different every time we met. And when Mr. Scott took over, it became, I think, two big bands. Home period didn't last for very long, but it lasted through the time that I was here, the sixth period thing.
Yeah, that probably bored you, but I'm just really fascinated by the history of things and how things came to be.
So what's your favorite part of playing at the high school?
Oh, definitely pep band in the fall. I just love sitting there with the fall leaves on the stands, watching football.
I love football. You gotta support the Pats, and I hope Danny Etling gets signed to their actual team, or even the practice squad. I just don't want him to get cut. Number 5, better support.
I agree. Yeah, so I always wondered why we have a pep band instead of a marching band, but Mr. Platt answered that question as well.
And we did the football games, and we sat in the stands. That started in '85, Mr. Davis told me. They stopped marching at halftime. And there was this beautiful old marching band uniform, which is probably still in the prop closets of the Drama Society at some point. They had these beautiful hats with plumes and, brocade and everything like that. They were a big marching band. I don't know why, but at that time it was a hard time for marching bands in Massachusetts. There was a thing called Proposition 2.5, which put a cap on property tax, and school systems were forced to cut things. And one of the first things that went by the wayside in many school systems was marching band, and that's what happened in Wellesley. The Red Blazers is an interesting story. About my second year here at the high school, I had a kid move in from Phoenix, Arizona on a Friday. And we had the old Veterans Day parade, used to be in October, the Wellesley parade. We had the parade that weekend. And he literally just landed in Wellesley, he came to rehearsal, he learned the tune. I said, yeah, just show up, black pants, a white shirt. He showed up in a t-shirt. And one of the selectmen, who's still very active in town, pointed this out to me the following Monday morning. He says, "Don't you guys have a uniform?" I said, "Actually, no, we don't. We don't have enough uniforms for all the kids anymore." So he got together Roy Switzler and raised all the money to buy those red band jacket blazers. And he and I kind of decided what that was going to look like. We actually wore the blazers at football games for a couple of years.
Yeah, researching the marching band was basically the reason why I chose to do the senior project. I was really interested in that, and it was also really cool to go to the Wellesley Historical Society and sit down and look at old photos and documents and just feel really important.
Do you have other favorite parts of playing music?
Yeah, pit orchestra for sure. It's definitely my favorite part of the year. I look forward to it every year, even though I'm a senior and I'm graduating now. I met so many of my good friends and I love them like family. And yeah, it's the best time ever. Shout out to Julianne, Jessica, Song Dynasty, and Ed Fam!
We do start the year with the musical, and that's a chance where the whole performing arts department gets to kind of pull out the stops and bring, the best of all of our areas into one collaborative and culminating performance that also brings out such a huge part of our community.
Pit orchestra in the fall musical, because I think that's the most impressive event, performing arts event that we put on, and you get to play non-stop every day, which for some people it's like I have to like balance my life between school and music, but like I enjoy music and I don't really enjoy school as much. It's like an excuse to not do school.
I really liked pit orchestra just because it's a smaller group of people, and I feel like I'm not sure if other schools have this opportunity, if they just like hire professionals or something, if they have like a little small band for musical, but I really like having pit orchestra because it only contains a few people and it's mostly one on a part, and it's really exposed, and I don't know, I felt really important, and I'm not sure, it gave me a chance to, like, if I wasn't flute, like principal flute, it gave me a chance to kind of be principal flute for one show, and it's really fun.
Didn't you guys go to Six Flags just the other day?
Yeah, we did. That was part of the Great East trip that concert band and wind ensemble went to in Agawam, Massachusetts.
Ooh, Western Mass?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the first time we did that, so that was a lot of fun.
For people who don't do the fall musical, are there other things that they can participate in?
I'd say like definitely, obviously the Mechanics Hall or the Symphony Hall, both were really good experiences. Micah's like another big experience. Like, you never think of playing music like competitively, I guess, but going to those and being able to play, especially in like the really big halls, and actually like play for a genuine audience feels really good, and it gives you an idea of like what it's like to play an instrument professionally.
Up until that point when we played in Mechanics Hall, like I hadn't played in any like famous halls, like I hadn't played in Symphony Hall, etc. So to play in a hall that's like as beautiful and like as sort of curated for specifically the wind ensemble sound as Mechanics Hall was like a really great experience, I'd say.
Certainly, bringing the bands to the Micah Festival each year, bringing the jazz bands out to various different kinds of festivals and getting them out there. What I love about those kinds of experiences is when our students see other students from other places and get that inspiration of seeing just another kid, another kid from another high school who wows them, who impresses them, and gets that feeling inside of their heart that says, hey, that's awesome. And I think I could do that, I could do that.
When 2 O'Clock won the Ellington Jazz Festival, and there were 2 sections of us on opposite sides of the auditorium at the school we were performing at, and from both sides it just erupted with cheers, and it was a lot of fun.
We do collaborate across groups, and whenever we do, I find that the music that we play and the experiences that we have are almost like the most impactful. Like I love when we combine with the chorus or the orchestras and we form like giant symphonic ensembles, and I find that sort of increases the amount of music that we're able to play, because we can play pieces like Sleep by Eric Whitacre, etc. that require a chorus and a wind ensemble to play them.
I feel like these performance opportunities just mean so much more to people than like rehearsal time, since those are the moments that will actually inspire people to want to keep playing music.
In however many ways we can, immersing music within the community. And I think if we can do that, that is really what makes a music program thrive. Like if you think about Kevin Mcdonald at the high school and bringing his groups out into the community, that's what makes his program so successful, and those experience for those students so life-changing, and it's a huge part. So
chorus, when we did the Home Alone experience with the Boston Pops, that was incredible. Super fun to be on stage with all those professional musicians and performing one of the country's greatest concert halls. That was really cool. At the end of your performance, you hear like the hall would just like erupt in applause. It was a really cool feeling, and I just wanted to recreate that feeling.
You've talked about the band a lot. What about the orchestra?
Oh yeah, well I don't play in the orchestra, but I have a lot of good friends that do, and they can speak to that.
Well, I play in Honors Chamber Orchestra, and it's a string-only orchestra. The only other orchestra I play in is a youth symphony at Rivers, which includes both strings and winds, and I think it's really it's a really important experience to play in a string-only orchestra, because the sort of repertoire that you get and the techniques you learn are really different.
Meeting Dr. K, even though he came in when we were freshmen, so our first year in the high school is also his first year, but being able to work with him the past 4 years has been really valuable, because you've seen how much he's gotten. Like, he's been a big shot conductor, and he's come to high school to teach for us, and also just to help the younger generation of musicians out here, and I think that's really special that he's chosen to do that with his career path.
It's a very responsible thing, because you have huge power. Teacher has a huge power, because I don't mean power, administrative power. I mean like moral power, because I remember myself being a student. I was looking for my teacher, that the person that knows a lot and knows better than me and knows different thing from me, and a lot of my teachers had a big influence on me. I understood that I can do the same, and it's really responsible what you give to your students. When we get results and we play really well, and it brings me like enormous pleasure. I am so happy, and as a conductor in these moments, I don't feel it as I'm teacher. I feel like we all are one body, and we do one great job. We're performing great music in really good performing level.
We also play some really good repertoire.
Well, what's one of your favorites?
Oh, definitely the first suite in E-flat by Gustav Holst. It was, I think, the very first march that I played when joining the wind ensemble sophomore year, and it still has a place in my heart forever. Want to listen to it?
Sure. That's copyright. Stop that. I remember that one time you told me about that drummer that went on to play for Hamilton.
Yeah, there was this percussionist named Vancil Cooper. Yeah, he played percussion at the Wellesley program, and he's now playing percussion on tour with Hamilton, which is sick.
Did you end up getting an interview with him?
No.
What you say? That you only meant well.
But I tried, and I'm actually really surprised he even responded to me. But it's really interesting to see how all these accomplished musicians, like these big names out on the scene, they all got their start somewhere, and it's really cool to see the people that got their start here and first picked up their instrument through Wellesley.
I was also fortunate that once I got to my high school years, I was very fortunate because we had one of the top jazz programs in the state.
Wellesley?
For sure, yeah.
Really?
My high school jazz band had competed, nationwide jazz competitions, the essentially Ellington competition in New York. I remember doing that a couple times with them. to participate in master classes and then a performance at Lincoln Center, which is like incredible.
Yeah, it's
You know what I mean?
incredible.
That was what forced me into the more academic side of music. Actually, backtracking a little bit, it was from when I showed interest in the 4th grade, and they were like, "Oh, okay, here's this kid with this raw talent." You know, I was growing up playing in church. As challenging and as breaking as it was for me, it was like starting to be able to figure out, okay, here's what is naturally put in me, and here's what's going to take me to the next level.
Seems like Wellesley has made a big impact in people's lives.
Oh yeah, Mr. Adams, the middle school band director, also got his start here. And I interviewed him, and it's just really interesting to see him go and progress through all the stages of being a musician, from like first picking up your instrument to performing to being a teacher and passing down that knowledge to other people like you.
From my experiences in this program, in this school, I knew that music was my identity. I knew that that was what I was passionate to do all the time, and it defined me. And I knew that after leaving Wellesley, that was going to be something that was going to bring me the most joy in my life. When I was a senior in high school, it might have been junior year, I went to New Orleans with the jazz band. And Wellesley back then had done these field trips down there to take us, and we performed on one of the riverboats. The jazz band performed on the riverboats, and we stayed for the weekend. And we had a tour of the cemetery. We got to see Preservation Hall, which is a really old historical jazz club down there. We got to see some music down there. We got to see some phenomenal music at the jazz festival itself. And I think that was an experience that I will always treasure. And I think from that point on is a critical moment in my life, thinking that I really wanted to do this and be a part of music for the rest of my life. Yeah, our senior project was wonderful. The prior year to that, we were all juniors, my best friends, and we had formed a band that was, the hope was to write our own music and maybe play some jazz tunes out of the real book, which we did. We started to write more music because that was what gave us the most, as I said, fulfillment. And we were able to write enough material to enter this Battle of Bands contest, and that was the junior year of our high school careers. Well, we won that Battle of the Bands contest, and it was sponsored by this radio station at the time. So we were able to play at this club downtown in Boston called Mama Cannon's for the final, and all our friends came, and it was like a huge moment for us. And we competed with like 3 other bands from around the Boston area. So we were able to win that, and we were super excited about that. The keyboard player from another band that was competing with our band at that time, at that show, came up to us after the show and said, "I want to play with you guys. I want to play with this band that I'm in that we lost." And we're like, and we had heard him play, and we knew that he was really talented. So we said, why not? Let's give him a shot. So we had a rehearsal shortly thereafter, and he blew us away. He played organ and keys and piano, and we decided that he would also be one of the key members of the band at that time. So we then thought, well, we have all this original material, and part of the deal was that we won this contest, this Battle of the Bands, and we won recording time. So we had kept that in our back pocket for our senior year. And then when it came time to apply for our senior project, we had decided that we'd want to cut a record and really spend the time honing in on our original songs and working with a producer. So it was a legit senior project. I mean, we had a lot of work to do. We had a lot of really fun work to do. And it was approved, and we were able to book some studio time, and we came up with our first studio album, which I think to date was one of our most successful, I won't say selling, but successfully heard albums out there that we put out. And it was, all again because of the opportunity that we had in school to do it. I don't think we would have necessarily been able to have done that if it wasn't for this project that we had. So we could set aside the time during the day to sit down and practice, write, record. It was awesome.
And then there's Seth Bailin.
Yeah, he's unique.
There were times when I didn't like to go to lessons. It was boring to me. I think I was starting to rebel as a teenager, and I was sort of over saxophone. And actually, I played in the jazz bands in high school, freshman and sophomore year, and then something happened in 10th grade, and the band director, Steve Scott, and I had a falling out. I have a lot of respect for Steve, Mr. Scott, but at that time, I was rebelling, and so I ended up quitting saxophone, quitting jazz band. I did not do any of those formal ensembles in 11th and 12th grade, and actually those were the years that the high school jazz band made it to essentially Ellington, and so I missed out on that opportunity. But I took that time to teach myself guitar and bass and join some punk bands and write music and do my own thing. So I feel like leaving the formal musical institutions of the high school helped me kind of stretch out and define my own musical identity. Also, those 2 years where I wasn't playing saxophone, I was really thankful to be in the music technology class. That really inspired me to record my own music, get into electronics, MIDI programming, multi-track recording, microphone placement, mixing, editing, digital media. So that class really helped me continue my musical training in sort of a different way than the formal jazz curriculum. I ended up studying sound recording at UMass Lowell. Really loved that program because I learned not just about technology, but about acoustics, psychoacoustics, listening on a deep level, different analog and digital techniques, and performance.
One thing that was very clear that we did recently is I talked a moment ago about how we had a class that was called music technology. It's now called songwriting, and that's an area where we have adapted and gone in the direction of where the student interest was. It's a small change to the curriculum, but I think a big philosophical change for students and drawing them to that class. At its core, what it has always been is a class where we learn to write songs. It's a songwriting class, and then we use current technology to write those songs, record them, and bring them to life. My biggest goal with songwriting is to create a class that it does not have to be for kids who are already in band, orchestra, and chorus, but to reach out and hit those kids that may be very passionate about music, very into maybe forming a band on their own, maybe have a garage band that they practice with on the weekends, and have great music interest and maybe even some music talent and ability that they've mined themselves, and get those kids into the curriculum and get them a place where they feel they have a place to connect with Wellesley High School and what we're doing here musically.
Didn't you try to get into that music tech class freshman year?
Yeah, I did, and it's actually really a heartbreaking story. It was like my dream class to take in 8th grade for the high school, and I tried so hard to get into that class. It appeared on my schedule, but I think the administration made a scheduling error, and it ended up being the same time as wind ensemble. So Mr. Scott couldn't teach both wind ensemble and music tech, so I was just sitting there alone on the first day, like lost in the high school.
That's horrible.
Yeah, and it's a big regret since I was never able to take it throughout my high school career.
So is this what music programs everywhere are like, or is this unique to Wellesley?
Well, I personally think that Wellesley is an exception on how well we do in music.
Well, I think that our program is particularly competitive, and in the sense that we do get a lot of people into districts, into all-state, and ensembles past that point, like all-Eastern and all-nationals. And so that's one of the ways that I think distinguishes Wellesley, in the sense that we do have a lot of talent and a lot of like depth and breadth of talent in our ensembles. And so when I often discuss with other schools, they are surprised that we have sort of such like a long-standing history of excellence within music in Massachusetts and beyond, and I think that that's what sort of I've noticed about Wellesley.
I transferred here sophomore year from a private school, and the music program was not this, and I enjoyed playing with that school. But when I got here, well, first when I auditioned for this orchestra and I got in here at the high school and I entered, I suddenly realized I was like way out of my league. Like it was much of a higher level than I expected it to be, and we were playing real repertoire that you play at the college level, and so I really had to work really hard to keep up with learning the music and everything.
My favorite thing about the music program in Wellesley in general is just the community, I would say. Just like it's fun because you can walk down the performing arts hallway at any given time during the day or after school even, and there's people there who are making music or doing drama or something that they love to do, and it's cool to be able to be in that environment every day and have such incredible resources to be able to do that with just such great people. For me, it's not so much the big memories so much as the little like day-to-day things. Like the percussion section has this birthday tradition where people will come in. We have these birthday glasses that have like happy birthday written across the top. So we get cookies, we take a section picture, and then we do the birthday punches where you just like boop and you add one for the extra year for good luck. That started 3 years ago, I think, and we've kept it up ever since.
If everyone was very self-entitled and like thought they were the best in the band, then I probably wouldn't keep doing it, but because everyone's supportive and also just like it's a really relaxed environment, that's why I really like it.
The music program is really supportive. It definitely gives you a family within the school because there's always somewhere you can hang out with people.
One of my favorite things about especially orchestra at school is that everybody is on the same, I would say, level of understanding of how we work together as a community. I think what's really important about orchestra is that everybody learns how to play together. And so this year it was kind of difficult because we did have a lot of our better players leave because they graduated. And everybody freaked out because we just didn't know what to do without them. And we all got to work together and really come together and figure out how to play as an orchestra, as an ensemble, and also we became really close because of that, I would say. My favorite memories were we would do like superlatives before our concert in like sophomore year. We did superlatives so that everybody would get one, and it was super funny. I think what was the most important for me about playing orchestra in school specifically was that I was able to experience a setting where I'm in the Boston Youth Symphony Orchestras and I'm in BYS, which is like the higher level, and there it's very competitive. Like everybody is extremely good at what they're doing, and it's very hard to like stand out or do anything, which is valuable to be able to know that you're not the best at what you do, and that's a really important lesson I've learned there. But especially playing at Wellesley High School, it's been really humbling to see how dedicated people are, even though they aren't at that level, but they are dying to get there.
Well, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing with me, Jen.
You're welcome.
Do you think next year you're going to continue singing or playing clarinet at college?
Yeah, for sure. I actually met the Harvard marching band the other day, and everyone there was really sweet and really nice, and I think I found that sense of community in the wide world of college next year that I'll be looking for.
In college, I definitely hope to join the orchestra if it's possible, and I definitely want to continue practicing the violin and sort of learning by myself and keeping up the skills and techniques I've developed.
I hope that I don't just give it up because I know that colleges have ensembles too. They have chorus, they have band, they have other stuff, and I want to try to be part of that in college, even if I'm not majoring in it. But I really want to just have the opportunity that can be like my extracurricular in college.
It definitely would be a shame if I just dropped the thing that I've been doing for my whole life, basically. I hope to really find a chamber group to play in because I've always only really played in orchestra, and so I want to be able to experience a smaller setting with just a couple of people and to make chamber music. But I also do plan on joining the symphonic orchestra wherever I end up. Right now it's Dartmouth, but who knows? Yeah.
Well, I can't see myself not playing cello at this point. I mean, it played such a big role, especially in high school. Like, pretty much every day I was practicing, preparing for some concert, and I just love classical music so much, and I love the cello so much that, like, it wouldn't make sense for me to give it up. Like, I know I'm not going to become like a professional musician, but it's like unthinkable that I would ever stop playing. I'm also playing in the Harvard Radcliffe Orchestra, which is the major orchestra at Harvard, which is a really good orchestra, probably the best one I've played in.
Music education, I think, is just like Mr. Scott. Actually, that's where I want. That's where I want to go. Doesn't mean I necessarily will go. I mean, maybe in college I'll like form a group and start my own band, and then it'll become really good. That's a big if though. So we'll see what happens. Others who have also like grown into being more serious about music have inspired me to also be serious about music, because it's not just the like adults who are like the professionals who I like almost never get to meet or see in person or like know very well personally. Those are not as inspiring as students, because like if I see another kid get really good at music and like actually pursue a career and be successful, it gives me hope to like do the same, because I am like them.
I'm not planning on majoring in music, but I might consider pursuing a minor, because the school that I'm attending does not have a separate music school, so that you can actually declare a major or minor in music after you are accepted. So also with that, regardless of whether or not I major or minor, I'm going to be taking private lessons, and I'm going to audition for their symphonic orchestra. And if I don't get into that, which I've heard is pretty competitive to get into, I'm going to be doing their wind ensemble and like their chamber music. So it's gonna be a lot, but I'm excited, and I've heard from other directors of other music schools at All Eastern that it has a very competitive music program, so I'm excited to pursue that, and will definitely keep music in my life. One of the things that I was really impressed with is that there are like a handful of students that are pursuing music performance majors and going to music schools coming out of Wellesley, and that was something that, at least for me, I had never really considered or known a lot of people that were doing that. And so when I was going into the college process, it kind of opened up for me this idea that yes, you can pursue music as a profession, and it sort of inspired me in the sense that while I didn't apply like specifically to music schools, there were a couple programs that I applied to that like combined a music and other like a bachelor's degree. And so in that way, it sort of opened up to me that I wouldn't actually have to stop playing or stop participating in music coming out of high school just purely because I had other professional aspirations, but that I could do that as well and possibly even pursue that as a career.
So I'm pursuing a dual degree in music performance and education at UMaryland. Music ed actually came from getting to like just run around the percussion section and like give notes, I guess. And because there are certain things when you like see somebody holding cymbals like upside down or backwards, and you're like, okay, that needs to get fixed. And just like little things that getting the opportunity to help other people become better players and getting to see their excitement of I'm getting better at this and see the progress, and just kind of what music educators have done for me. So that's where that ed part comes in.
So I'm going to McGill next year to study at the Schulich School of Music, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to be a viola performance major, so I'll be trained to I'll spend the next couple years developing my technique and things like that, and then use musicality, so I can, when I graduate with a bachelor's, I can go on to audition for orchestras. I'll probably get my master's, so I don't think I'll stop it with undergraduate, and maybe my doctorate, I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to be training to be an orchestral musician. If I don't know if I'll do that. I'll probably end up teaching at some point. I don't know if it's going to be the high school level or the university level. Dr. Max is pretty much the reason that I decided I want to pursue music. There are many factors, but he was the one who's inspired me the most to just how much he cares about his job and the outcome. It's reflective on me, and it's had a huge impact on me.
Best of luck.
Yeah!